The message came in the dead of night. In the quiet halls of the Galactic Council's communication center, a young technician named Trell nearly fell from his chair when the emergency frequency lit up his console. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly as he verified the signal origin 3 times before believing it. "Sir, emergency transmission from the Lumian homeworld," Trell called out, his voice cracking. Senior Communications Officer Vard shuffled over, annoyed, at the disruption of his peaceful night shift. The Lumians were a peaceful race, known for their advanced technology and gentle nature. They rarely contacted the Council except for scheduled reports. "Put it through," Vard ordered, straightening his uniform. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a Lumian with pale blue skin and large, frightened eyes. Smoke filled the background, and distant explosions punctuated the transmission. The Lumian's delicate features were twisted with fear. "This is High Minister Pell of the Lumian Cooperative. We are under attack by the Vex Armada. Our outer colonies have fallen. Our defense systems cannot hold. We request immediate assistance from the Galactic Council. We have less than 30 days before our homeworld falls." Vard felt his blood run cold. The Vex were a ruthless species that consumed everything in their path. Their war fleets had destroyed dozens of civilizations on the Outer Rim. "Minister Pell, this is the Galactic Council receiving. How many Vex ships have entered your system?" "Over 200 warships. They destroyed our orbital defenses in hours. Please, we cannot fight them. We need help." The transmission ended abruptly with the sound of an explosion. Vard immediately alerted the Council, knowing full well what their response would be. No single species in the Council had the military strength to challenge the Vex. A coalition force would take months to organize, months the Lumians didn't have. 12 hours later, the full Galactic Council assembled in their grand chamber. Representatives from 50 advanced species debated what to do about the Lumian crisis. "We cannot assemble a defense force quickly enough," stated the Talarian ambassador, her crystalline form glittering under the chamber lights. "Perhaps we can negotiate," began another. "The Vex do not negotiate," interrupted Ambassador Morva, an ancient being whose species had barely survived a Vex encounter centuries ago. "They consume and move on. The Lumians are already lost." In the far back of the chamber, in the observer section reserved for non-voting members, sat Admiral Marcus Jones of Earth's United Defense Force. Humans had only achieved faster than light travel 60 years ago. They were still considered primitives by most of the galactic community, Deathworlders, who evolved on a high-gravity planet full of predators and natural disasters. The Council had allowed humans observer status only, concerned about their history of warfare and their biological adaptations for survival in harsh conditions. To most galactic species, humans were unpredictable and potentially dangerous. As Marcus listened to the Council debate, he felt a growing anger. The Lumians would die while these diplomats talked. When the Council adjourned without reaching a decision, Admiral Jones made his way to a secure communication room in the Earth Embassy. He connected directly to the United Earth government on a quantum encrypted channel. President Laura Wilson appeared on screen, her gray hair pulled back tightly, her eyes sharp despite the late hour in the North American Union. "Admiral, your report?" "Madam President, the Lumians have sent out an SOS. The Vex Armada is tearing through their system. The Council is doing what they always do, talking while people die." President Wilson nodded grimly. "Our intelligence already picked up the distress call. What's your assessment?" "The Vex have around 200 warships. They've destroyed the Lumian outer colonies and will reach their homeworld within a month. The Lumians are technologically advanced but have no significant military. They're pacifists." And the Council's response? "There won't be one in time. They're afraid, and with good reason. The Vex don't leave survivors." The President was silent for a moment. "How many ships would we need to make a difference?" Admiral Jones felt his heart beat faster. "Everything we've got, and even then, it would be a near-suicide mission. I'm calling an emergency session of Earth's Defense Council. Be ready to brief us in 4 hours." The meeting room in Earth's Geneva headquarters was filled to capacity. Military leaders from every continent sat alongside colonial representatives from Mars, Europa, and Titan. Admiral Jones stood at the front, having just finished briefing them on the Lumian situation. "Let me be clear," he said, looking at each face in turn. "If we do this, we will be acting against Council recommendations. Many of our ships and crews won't come back. But if we don't, an entire civilization dies." General Rita Hayes from the African Coalition leaned forward. "The Council has denied our full membership for decades because they say we're too violent, too unpredictable. Now they sit on their hands while billions of Lumians face extinction." "The Vex have never faced humans before," added Colonel Wei from the Asian Alliance. "They've fought peaceful species who surrender quickly. They haven't fought Deathworlders who evolved hunting predators twice their size." President Wilson called for a vote. The decision was unanimous. Earth would send its fleet. 2 days later, Admiral Jones stood on the bridge of the UDF Resolute, Earth's largest battleship. Through the viewscreen, he watched as ships from every human nation and colony moved into formation. Battleships, carriers, destroyers, and frigates, 300 vessels in all, crewed by volunteers who knew they might never return home. Captain Sam Turner approached, offering a data tablet. "Admiral, all ships report ready for jump." Jones looked at the fleet manifest. The ships had been pulled from every corner of human space. Some were brand new. Others recommissioned veterans of past conflicts between Earth nations. It was the largest military force humans had ever assembled. "Captain, open a channel to the fleet." When the connection was confirmed, Admiral Jones spoke, clearly his voice reaching every ship. "Men and women of Earth's fleet, we are about to embark on the most important mission in human history, not to fight for ourselves, but to save a species that cannot save themselves. The galactic community calls us Deathworlders like it's something to be ashamed of. But today, we show them what that really means. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every day. We survived ice ages and predators and disease. We endured natural disasters and our own wars. Everything that made us strong, our tenacity, our refusal to surrender, our ability to fight on when logic says we should fall, all of it was forged in the crucible of Earth. The Lumians have 3 weeks before their world falls. We'll be there in 5 days. The Vex think they're hunting easy prey. They're about to learn what it means to face the children of Earth." A cheer rose through the ship, echoed across the fleet. "All ships prepare for jump. We're going hunting." The space before the fleet shimmered as jump drives engaged. One by one, 300 ships disappeared into the void, carrying humanity's sole answer to an alien cry for help. Behind them, Earth turned peacefully, unaware that its children were about to show the galaxy why Deathworlders were the most dangerous species of all, not because they sought violence, but because when protecting others they would never, ever quit. 5 days after leaving Earth, Admiral Jones stood on the command deck of the UDF Resolute, watching as his fleet regrouped at the edge of Lumian space. The jump had been successful, with only minor navigation issues affecting 3 ships. "Status. Report," he ordered. Captain Lisa Reed, commander of the UDF Relentless, appeared on the main screen. Her face was stern, framed by short gray hair that matched her sharp eyes. "All ships accounted for, Admiral. Battle groups are forming as planned. Weapons and shields at full capacity." Jones nodded. "And the scout ships?" "They've entered the system 10 minutes ago. We should have their first report soon." The waiting was the hardest part. Jones had sent 3 small, fast ships ahead to gather information on the Vex positions. Fighting blind would only get more humans killed. The communication officer turned from his station. "Admiral, incoming transmission from Scout 2. Put it through." The face of Lieutenant Dan Taylor appeared, looking grim. "Sir, we've completed our first sweep of the outer system. It's bad. The Vex have destroyed all 4 outer colonies. Billions dead. Their fleet is moving toward the Lumian homeworld in a standard sweep pattern. We count at least 200 warships, maybe more." Jones felt his stomach tighten. He had known the odds, but hearing it confirmed made it real. "Any sign they've detected you?" "Negative, sir. We're staying beyond their sensor range." "Good. Continue observation. I want detailed scans of their fleet composition." As the transmission Ended, Jones turned to his tactical officer. How long until they reach the Lumian homeworld? At their current speed, 14 days, sir. Not much time. Jones opened a channel to all ship commanders. Battle group leaders report to the Resolute for strategy briefing in 1 hour. We move into the system at 600 tomorrow. The briefing room was crowded with 30 ship commanders representing each battle group. Maps of the Lumian system glowed, in the center of the table, showing Vex fleet positions marked in red. Captain Reed spoke first. Our scouts report the Vex fleet is spread thin as they search for survivors. They haven't faced real resistance, so they're not in defensive formation. Admiral Jones nodded. That gives us an advantage. We'll split into 10 battle groups and hit them from multiple vectors. Captain Reed, your group will lead the main assault here. He pointed to the largest cluster of Vex ships. Commander Ford, your fast attack group will target their support vessels. Captain Miller, your group will break through to the Lumian homeworld and establish defensive positions. Commander Ben Ford, a young officer known for his aggressive tactics, looked concerned. Sir, we still know very little about Vex weapons capabilities. Our intelligence is limited, which is why we need better intelligence, Jones replied. We've arranged a meeting with someone who can help us. As if on cue, the door slid open. A tall, slender figure entered, skin pale blue and eyes large and luminous. It was a Lumian, older by the looks of it, wearing formal robes marked with burn holes. This is Ambassador Pell, Jones introduced, the same one who sent the distress call. His ship escaped the initial attack. Pell bowed slightly. I thank you for coming. My people thought no one would answer our call. The Galactic Council wouldn't help? Asked Captain Miller. They would have debated until we were all dead, Pell said simply. When I learned humans were coming, I broke protocol to meet you. The Council fears your species. I fear extinction more. Jones gestured to the map. Ambassador, we need to know everything about the Vex, their weapons, tactics, weaknesses. Pell stepped forward and waved his long fingers over the display. The image changed to show detailed schematics of Vex warships. The Vex rely on energy, weapons, powerful but slow to recharge. Their ships have strong frontal shields but weaker protection on the sides and rear. They fight in perfect formation and never retreat, no matter the losses. Captain Reed studied the images. Predictable. They've never needed to adapt. Exactly, Pell nodded. They've conquered 17 species and none could stand against them. They expect the same from you. Then we'll give them a surprise, Jones said grimly. We're going to hit them hard, hit them fast, and hit them where they don't expect it. While the commanders planned their attack, ordinary crew members throughout the fleet prepared for battle. On the UDF Dauntless, engineer Anna Grant checked weapon systems with her team. The missile tubes had been modified based on Pell's information about Vex shield frequencies. Their shields are calibrated against energy weapons, she explained to her junior engineers. But our kinetic weapons should punch right through if we time it right. In the medical bay of the UDF Horizon, Dr. Tom Wright organized his supplies. Set up extra trauma stations, he ordered his staff, and double-check the synthetic blood supplies. We're going to need them. Across the fleet, 300 ships hummed with activity. Marines cleaned their weapons. Pilots ran simulations. Communication officers synchronized encrypted channels. That evening, Admiral Jones found Ambassador Pell alone in the observation deck staring at the distant stars. Ambassador, you should rest. Tomorrow will be difficult. Pell turned, his large eyes reflecting the starlight. I never imagined your kind would come. The Council speaks of humans as dangerous, violent creatures from a death planet. Jones joined him at the window. Earth shaped us. High gravity made our bones dense, our muscles strong. Predators made us vigilant. Natural disasters taught us to adapt. But it also taught us to protect those who cannot protect themselves. My people have never known war, Pell said quietly. We evolved on a gentle world with few threats. We developed technology instead of strength. The Vex see this as weakness. It's not weakness to choose peace, Jones replied. But sometimes you need people who understand war to defend that choice. Pell was silent for a moment. How many of your people will die to save mine? Jones didn't sugarcoat it. Many, perhaps too many, but every person on these ships volunteered knowing the odds. Why? Because that's who we are. We may be Deathworlders, but we use our strength to defend life, not take it. At 600 ship time, the human fleet moved into Lumian space. From the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Jones watched as the ships divided into their battle groups, each heading for their assigned targets. Captain Reed's voice came through the comm. All ships report ready, Admiral. Weapons hot, shields at maximum. Jones took a deep breath. The moment had come. 300 human ships against 200 Vex warships that had never known defeat. On paper, it looked almost even, but the Vex had conquered 17 species without a single loss. They were about to face their first defeat. All ships, this is Admiral Jones. The Vex think they're unstoppable because they've never faced humans before. They've never fought Deathworlders who evolved fighting every day just to survive. Today we show them what Earth taught us. He paused, looking at the tactical display where red dots showed the unsuspecting Vex ships. Battle Group 1, commence. Attack. All groups, execute your missions. For Earth and the Lumians. Across the void, engines flared as human ships accelerated toward the enemy. The fleet of the Deathworlders had arrived, bringing with them everything that made humanity both terrible and great. Their tenacity, their courage, and their unwavering determination to protect those who could not protect themselves. The battle for Lumian space had begun. Captain Lisa Reed of the UDF Relentless watched her tactical display as her battle group approached the largest cluster of Vex ships. 10 human warships against 23 Vex vessels. Not great odds, but the element of surprise was on their side. All ships, maintain radio silence. Weapons hot. Execute attack pattern Delta on my mark, she ordered quietly. The Vex had no idea they were coming. Their ships moved in a perfect, orderly formation as they bombarded a small Lumian mining outpost. Their precision was impressive but predictable. 3 minutes to optimal firing range, her tactical officer reported. Reed nodded. Prepare missile salvos. Target their rear shield quadrants. Ambassador Pell had explained that Vex ships had their weakest shields at the rear, confident that no enemy would ever get behind them. Today, that confidence would cost them. Mark, Reed commanded. 10 human warships suddenly broke from their stealth approach. Engines flared as they executed a complex maneuver, splitting into pairs that curved around to attack the Vex formation from 5 different angles. The Relentless shuddered as it launched its first missile salvo. 40 high-yield warheads streaked across space, followed by hundreds more from the other ships in the battle group. On the Vex command ship, alarms blared as sensors detected the incoming attack. For crucial seconds, the Vex commanders hesitated, unable to understand how enemy ships had approached undetected. That hesitation proved fatal. The missiles struck their targets, overwhelming the weaker rear shields. 5 Vex ships erupted into balls of flame before they could even return fire. Direct hits, shouted the weapons officer. 5 enemy ships destroyed, 3 heavily damaged. Reed allowed herself a small smile. Good. Begin evasive pattern. Keep moving. Don't give them a stable target. The Vex responded with energy beams that cut through space, but the human ships were already changing position, dancing in unpredictable patterns that the Vex targeting system struggled to track. Across the Lumian system, similar scenes played out as human battle groups engaged Vex formations. The Deathworlders fought with a ferocity and unpredictability that confused the Vex, who were accustomed to enemies that followed logical, predictable patterns. On the UDF Dauntless, Captain Robert Miller watched as his ship took a direct hit from a Vex energy weapon. The ship rocked violently, throwing crew members to the floor. "Damage report!" he shouted over the blaring alarms. His first officer's face was streaked with blood from a cut on his forehead. "Hull breach on decks 3 through 5. Sealing emergency. Bulkheads, casualties reported in engineering, starboard weapons offline." A normal species might have retreated after such damage. The Vex clearly expected it, already turning their attention to another target. Miller wiped dust from his eyes. Redirect power from non-essential systems to the port weapons array. Bring us about. We're not done yet. In engineering, Chief Engineer Anna Grant worked frantically to keep the ship's systems online. A support beam had collapsed, crushing 2 of her team members. Her arm was burned from a plasma leak, but she ignored the pain. Reroute power through the auxiliary conduits, she ordered the remaining engineers. We need those weapons back. When a junior engineer hesitated, looking at the bodies of their fallen comrades, Grant grabbed his shoulder. Later we'll mourn. Right now we fight. Every second those weapons are offline, more of us die. The engineer nodded and returned to work. On the Vex command ship, Fleet Commander Kralvor watched in confusion as the battle unfolded. His forces were taking unprecedented losses. These creatures fight without logic, he hissed to his sub-commander. Their ships are damaged beyond repair, yet they continue to attack. On his view screen, he watched a human destroyer, venting atmosphere and trailing debris, ram itself directly into a Vex cruiser. Both ships exploded in a brilliant flash. Open a communication channel to their lead vessel, Kralvor ordered. I wish to understand these Deathworlders before we exterminate them. On the bridge of the UDF Dauntless, Captain Miller was strapped back into his command chair. Half the bridge stations were destroyed, and emergency force fields contained hull breaches on 3 sides. The air was thin as life support struggled to maintain pressure. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Vex command ship, reported his communications officer, her face pale from oxygen deprivation. Put it through, Miller ordered, wiping blood from a gash on his cheek. The screen flickered to life, showing a Vex commander. The alien had a reptilian appearance with scales that shifted color like oil on water. Its 4 yellow eyes widened slightly at the sight of the damaged bridge. Human commander. The Vex spoke in a hissing voice translated by the ship's computer. Your vessel is critically damaged. Your weapons are operating at 30% capacity. Surrender now, and we will make your extinction painless. Miller laughed, a sound that clearly confused the Vex commander. Look closer, Miller said, gesturing to his wounded crew, each still at their posts despite injuries. Do we look like we're about to surrender? The Vex commander seemed genuinely puzzled. Your ship is dying. Logic dictates you should retreat to preserve your lives. That's the difference between us, Miller replied, blood dripping from his chin. You fight until it's logical to stop. We fight until the job is done. He cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. Target their command ship, all remaining missiles. Sir, at this range the blast will damage us too. I know. Fire. From the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Jones watched the tactical display as the battle raged across the system. Human ships fought with everything they had, refusing to retreat, even when logic said they should. The Vex, accustomed to enemies that broke after sustaining minimal damage, were clearly confused by the human tactics. For the first time, several Vex ships broke formation, retreating from battle. Sir, his communications officer called out. Captain Reed reports her battle group has destroyed 14 Vex ships with 6 more retreating. They've secured the sector. Jones nodded. And Captain Miller's group? A pause. The Dauntless reports a direct hit on the Vex command ship. Both vessels are heavily damaged, but the Vex ship is retreating. 3 other human ships in that group are gone, sir. Jones closed his eyes briefly. The cost was already high, but they had achieved what no other species had. They had made the Vex retreat. Ambassador Pell stood silently nearby, watching the battle with wide, disbelieving eyes. They're retreating, he whispered. In 17 conquests, the Vex have never retreated. They've never faced humans before, Jones replied grimly. We'll make them retreat all the way out of your system. He opened a channel to the fleet. All ships. This is Admiral Jones. The Vex are falling back in multiple sectors. Press the advantage. We have them on the run. Throughout the system, damaged human ships continued their relentless assault. Blood-spattered crews worked through pain and grief, pushing their ships beyond design limits. For every human ship lost, they claimed 2 Vex vessels, and for the first time in their long history of conquest, the Vex Armada tasted fear. The fear of an enemy that simply would not quit, no matter the cost. 3 weeks into the campaign, the human fleet had pushed the Vex back from the Lumian homeworld. The cost had been enormous, over 60 human ships destroyed and dozens more severely damaged. But the Vex had lost nearly half their fleet, an unprecedented defeat for the previously unstoppable armada. On the medical ship UDF Mercy, Dr. Emily Wright hadn't slept in 36 hours. The medical bay was filled beyond capacity with wounded from damaged ships across the fleet. Burn victims, radiation exposure, traumatic amputations, injuries that would make most species give up the fight. A Lumian medical observer named Trell watched in amazement as Dr. Wright moved from patient to patient. He had volunteered to help. When the Mercy established a field hospital on the Lumian moon base. "Doctor, I don't understand," Trell said, helping her dress a severe plasma burn on a Marine's leg. "This man has third-degree burns over 30% of his body. In our medical protocols, he would be sedated and removed from duty for months." Wright barely looked up as she worked. "On Earth, we've been treating war wounds since before we had written language. He'll be back on duty in 24 hours. The Marine, despite his pain, nodded firmly. "My squad needs me, Doc. Just patch me up enough to hold a rifle." Trell's 4 eyes blinked rapidly in disbelief. "But why continue, fighting when so badly injured?" The Marine gave a pained smile. "Because the job isn't done." On the UDF Relentless, Captain Lisa Reed studied the latest intelligence reports with her officers. Despite their successes, the remaining Vex ships had regrouped into a tight defensive formation around their flagship, a massive vessel twice the size of the largest human warship. "They're learning to adapt to our tactics," Reed said grimly. "The element of surprise is gone." Intelligence Officer Dave Cooper pointed to the holographic display of the Vex formation. "Their command structure remains highly centralized. All tactical decisions flow from the flagship. If we could take it out, the rest of their fleet would be in disarray." "Easier said than done," Reed replied. "They've surrounded it with their remaining ships in a layered defense. We don't have enough firepower left to break through." Cooper hesitated. "There might be another way. We captured a damaged Vex shuttle during the last engagement. It's small but functional." Reed raised an eyebrow. "You're suggesting infiltration?" "Yes, ma'am. A small team could approach using the Vex shuttle. Their automated systems should recognize it as friendly. Once aboard the flagship, they could sabotage key systems, maybe even their command network." Reed was silent for a moment. "It would be a one-way trip. Even if they succeeded, getting off that ship alive would be nearly impossible." "I know," Cooper said quietly. "But if it works, we save thousands of our people and billions of Lumians." Admiral Jones approved the plan with a heavy heart. "Who will lead the mission?" he asked Captain Reed over the secure channel. "Lieutenant, Mike Foster has volunteered," she replied. "He's put together a team of 6 Special Forces operators." Jones recognized the name. Foster had grown up in the harsh Australian outback, one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth. If anyone could survive this mission, it would be him. "Very well, tell them Earth is proud." In the hangar bay of the Relentless, Lieutenant Foster briefed his team as they prepared their equipment. All 6 were veterans of Earth's most elite military units, trained to operate in the harshest conditions imaginable. "Once we're aboard," Foster explained, "we split into 3 teams. Team 1 targets their central computer core. Team 2 handles the power distribution network. Team 3, that's you and me, Jackson, we go after the command center. Sergeant." Maria Jackson nodded grimly. A former Arctic survival instructor, she had once survived 2 weeks alone in a blizzard after her shelter collapsed. "What's our extraction plan?" Foster met her eyes. "There isn't one. But if we succeed, the rest of our fleet survives." No one spoke for a moment. Then Jackson checked her weapon. "Well, if we're not coming back, let's make it count." Foster looked at each member of his team. None showed fear, only determination. "Remember your training. Remember Earth. Let's show these Vex what Deathworlders can do." Ambassador Pell watched from the bridge of the Resolute as the captured Vex shuttle launched. It was barely visible against the darkness of space, a tiny vessel heading toward the massive Vex flagship. Will they succeed? He asked Admiral Jones, softly. If any beings in this galaxy can, it's them, Jones replied. Each one of them comes from one of the harshest regions of Earth, places where survival itself is a daily battle, and yet they volunteer for a mission with no return. Jones nodded. That's humanity at its best. We can be violent, yes. We evolved as predators on a world that tried to kill us every day. But we use that strength to protect, not just to destroy. The captured Vex shuttle approached the massive flagship, broadcasting identification codes taken from the shuttle's damaged computer. Lieutenant Foster sat in the pilot's seat, his breathing calm and measured despite the tension. They're scanning us, reported Corporal Lee, monitoring the communications system. For a terrifying moment, they thought they'd been discovered. Then a transmission came through, a series of codes they couldn't understand, but the shuttle's computer responded automatically. They're giving us landing clearance, Lee said with surprise. They think we're one of theirs returning from a damaged ship. Foster allowed himself a small smile. Perfect. Everyone remember. Move with purpose, but don't run. Act like you belong. Until we reach our targets. The shuttle slipped into a massive hangar bay filled with Vex vessels and repair equipment. As the team prepared to disembark, Foster looked at each of his people one last time. Whatever happens, it's been an honor. On the UDF Resolute, Admiral Jones watched the tactical display. The human fleet was positioned just beyond the Vex sensor range, waiting. Everything depended on Foster's team now. Sir, his communications? Officer called out. We're receiving a message from the Galactic Council. Jones frowned. Now? Put it through. The holographic display showed a council representative, a tall, crystalline being that glittered in the light. Admiral Jones, the council has been monitoring the situation in the Lumion system. We are surprised by your success against the Vex. We're a bit busy at the moment, Jones replied curtly. What does the council want? To observe. We have dispatched a diplomatic vessel to your location. The council wishes to understand how your species has achieved what no other could. Jones almost laughed. After refusing to help, now they wanted to watch. Your observer is welcome, but they'd better stay clear of the combat zone. We're about to hit the Vex with everything we have left. 4 hours after the shuttle landed, the Vex flagship suddenly went dark. Its lights flickered and died as power systems failed across the massive vessel. Communication ceased between the flagship and the rest of the fleet. On the Resolute's bridge, a cheer went up as they watched the Vex formation begin to drift apart, ships moving in confused patterns without central coordination. Foster did it, Jones said quietly, then louder. All ships, this is Admiral Jones. The Vex command network is down. Execute final attack plan. Hit them with everything we've got. Throughout the system, human ships surged forward, weapons blazing. Without their centralized command structure, the Vex ships fought individually, their perfect coordination shattered. As the battle raged, a small explosion tore through the hull of the Vex flagship. A single escape pod jettisoned away from the dying vessel, tumbling through space. Inside, Lieutenant Foster sat alone, blood pooling beneath him from a wound in his side. The rest of his team had stayed behind to ensure the mission's success. He stared out the small viewport as the massive Vex flagship began to break apart. We did it, he whispered to his fallen comrades. Earth's fleet will survive. The Lumions will live. As consciousness faded, his last thought was of the harsh Australian desert where he'd grown up. Earth had taught him how to survive against impossible odds. Today, he'd use that lesson to save billions. The battle for Lumion space ended 3 days after Lieutenant Foster's mission. Without their command structure, the remaining Vex ships fell into disarray. Some fought to the end while others fled, abandoning their conquest for the first time. In their long history, the cost had been enormous. Of the 300 human ships that had answered the Lumion distress call, only 180 remained. 40,000 humans had died to save billions of Lumions. Admiral Jones stood on the observation deck of the UDF Resolute, watching as rescue ships moved between damaged vessels. The Lumian homeworld glowed blue and peaceful below, saved from destruction. Captain Lisa Reed joined him, her uniform torn and her face bearing a new scar from a bridge explosion during the final battle. "We found Foster's escape pod," she reported. "He's alive, barely. Dr. Wright thinks he'll make it." Jones nodded, relief visible on his tired face. "And the rest of his team?" "They stayed behind to complete the mission. They knew what they were doing." They stood in silence for a moment, honoring the sacrifice. "The Lumian government has invited us to a ceremony," Reed said finally. "They want to thank Earth personally." Jones looked out at the stars. "Make sure every ship that can still fly is represented. Every person who survived deserves to see what they saved." On the surface of the Lumian homeworld, medical teams from both species worked side by side. Human doctors taught Lumian healers techniques developed over centuries of warfare and disaster. Treatments for trauma, burn care, battlefield medicine, knowledge. Born from humanity's violent history now used to save lives. Dr. Emily Wright supervised a joint medical center where the most severely wounded were treated. A Lumian doctor named Mira worked beside her, learning quickly. "Your methods are aggressive," Mira commented as they finished a difficult surgery on a burned engineer. "But effective. You've saved many we would have lost." Wright smiled tiredly. "Earth taught us to be survivors. When your planet tries to kill you with everything from microbes to megafauna, you get good at staying alive. The Council called you violent because of this," Mira said, gesturing to their military equipment. "They feared what you might do with your strength." "Strength isn't good or bad by itself," Wright replied. "It's how you use it that matters." In the capital city of the Lumian homeworld, a grand ceremony was prepared. The central plaza had been transformed, with crystalline structures that captured and refracted sunlight in beautiful patterns. Ambassador Pell, now appointed as High Minister of the Lumian government, stood before a gathering of both species. Human officers in formal uniform sat alongside Lumian officials. Many humans were bandaged or in hover chairs, their wounds still healing. "People of Earth," Pell began, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. "1 month ago, my people faced extinction. The Galactic Council debated while we died. No species dared stand against the Vex Armada." He gestured to the humans before him. "Then came the Deathworlders. The Council named you this as if it were something to fear. But today we know it for what it truly is, a badge of honor. You came from a world that tried to kill you every day. You evolved alongside predators and disasters. You survived ice, ages, and plagues. And you used that strength not to conquer but to protect." Pell raised his hands and the crystalline structures around the plaza began to glow. They shifted, forming a memorial that captured starlight in intricate patterns. At the center, a holographic display showed the names of every human who had died in the battle. "This memorial will stand for 10,000 years, Pell declared, "so that no Lumian ever forgets what Earth did for us. Each name you see represents a person who gave their life for a species they had never met." Admiral Jones stood, ignoring the pain from his own injuries, and approached the podium when Pell gestured to him. "High Minister Pell, people of Lumia," Jones began. "We answered your call because that's what humans do. Our planet forged us in hardship, but it also taught us to stand together against threats too big for any one of us to face alone." He looked out at the crowd, at the human and Lumian faces watching him. "The Council called us Deathworlders like it was something to be ashamed of. But today, we claim that title with pride. Yes, we come from a world that tried to kill us. Yes, we evolved as predators with the instincts to fight. But we choose what to do with those instincts. We choose to defend life, not take it." A week later, in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, an emergency session was called. The observer who had witnessed the final battle gave their report to the stunned representatives of 50 advanced species. The humans fought beyond all logical limits, the observer stated. Their ships continued fighting with damage that would have forced any of our vessels to retreat. Their wounded returned to duty with injuries that would incapacitate our people for months. The council chamber filled with murmurs as the observer showed recordings from the battle. Footage of Captain Miller continuing to command despite severe injuries. Engineers working in vacuum to repair critical systems. Marines fighting hand-to-hand when ammunition ran out. At the back of the chamber, Admiral Jones waited with Ambassador Pell. For this session, Earth had been granted speaker status, not yet membership, but a step forward. When called upon, Jones walked slowly to the center of the chamber. His injuries were healing, but he still moved with pain. "Esteemed Council," he began, "for decades you've kept humanity at arm's length. You called us violent, unpredictable, dangerous. You called us Deathworlders like it was an insult." He paused, looking at each council member in turn. "But it was the gravity of our world that gave us our strength. It was the predators we evolved alongside that taught us vigilance. It was the harshness of our planet that taught us to endure. And it was our long, violent history that taught us the true value of peace." The chamber was silent. "Today we don't ask for your approval. We don't need it. But know this. The next time a peaceful species faces extinction, Earth will answer their call. That's what Deathworlders do." The council voted unanimously to grant humanity full membership, something no species had achieved in less than a century of contact. As the formal ceremony concluded, the elderly Lumian High Minister Pell approached Captain Reed. "You were born on a world that tried to kill you," Pell said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "And because of that, my world still lives." Reed smiled. "That's the gift Earth gave us, though we didn't always see it that way. Strength earned through struggle, courage born from facing fear." "What will humanity do now?" Pell asked. "We'll rebuild our fleet, stronger this time, and we'll be ready if anyone else needs Deathworlders to answer their call." 1 year later, a previously unknown species sent a distress call as they faced invasion. Within hours, the newly formed Galactic Defense Fleet responded, a coalition, force led by human officers but incorporating ships and crews from a dozen worlds. At its head flew the flagship Deathworld, commanded by the now Admiral Lisa Reed. Beside her stood Pell, serving as her advisor. The message they broadcast to the invading force was simple. "We are the children of Earth. We were forged in fire and raised on a world that taught us to never give up. We stand with those who cannot stand alone. You have one chance to retreat." The invaders, having heard the stories of the human defense of Lumian space, began to withdraw before the first shot was fired. "It seems our reputation precedes us," Reed commented. Pell nodded. "The galaxy has learned an important lesson. Sometimes, you need the descendants of a death world to preserve life." Across the stars, humanity's legacy was no longer feared, but welcomed. Deathworlders who used their strength not to conquer but to protect.